For joining us today on our February online roundtable. My name's Chris. I am the Campus and Community Engagement Librarian at Northwestern University, and I'm also a member of the Academic Outreach Committee for ACRL-ULS that puts together these roundtables. Today's discussion is around themed events. I'm assuming a lot of us are outreach or outreach-minded librarians, and of course this comes at a good time because this is African American History Month. Next month is Women's History Month, and then April is, of course, National Library Week. So there's lots of these sorts of activities that go on throughout the year, and so it's interesting to get us together to talk about how we're all doing or tackling or what we're doing around these events. And hopefully everybody get a little something out of this conversation. I know I've always gotten a number of awesome ideas stealing and appropriating from the people that we talk to in these. So that's me. We'll go around the room and introduce ourselves. Ilana, do you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Ilana Karchmer. I'm also a member of the Academic Outreach Committee. I'm sort of the helper person for this event. I'm the Instruction Program and Information Literacy Librarian at St. Leo University, which is in Florida, outside of Tampa. And I don't really do outreach per se, except that we all know that we do outreach all the time. So it's good for me to get some ideas, even though I'm usually in the classroom and working with students. It's interesting to hear your perspectives.
Kate, why don't you go next? We'll go in order of people showing up.
Sure. I'm Kate Hirschspiel. I am the Outreach Coordinator and Reference Librarian at Emerson College in Boston. What else do we say? I do outreach. It's in my job title.
Eva?
Sure, yeah. My name is Eva Sklipa. I'm the Art Librarian and Coordinator of Instruction at the Scholes Library at Alfred University. Like a lot of outreach isn't officially maybe as much of what I do. It's not part of my title. I'm mostly instruction, but I recently did a sort of 2-month series of events surrounding this traveling exhibit, and it's kind of got the outreach bug, so I'd love to hear some more ideas of other things I could do.
It's a good bug to have.
Yeah, not fatal thus far.
It can get a little tiring. It can wear you out. It can be kind of like having the flu, or maybe just mono.
Right, slightly flesh-eating.
Amy.
Hi everyone, I'm the Outreach and Student Engagement Librarian at John Carroll University just outside of Cleveland. I do officially do outreach, and that was why I was running a little bit late. I was putting up a Black History Month display, so yeah.
How appropriate.
I know.
So we'll expect to hear more about that when we talk about displays and things. So getting the conversation rolling, what types of programming do you do at the library for themed events? Outside the library? In the library, outside the library, there's campus departments that you might work with, community departments. So what events do you kind of tackle?
I mean, I guess I could. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Okay. It's totally okay.
Yeah, it sounds like you probably have a more regular slate of events. For me, it's sort of whenever something comes up and I find a connection that seems like it might work for the library. So again, sort of the most recent thing was this. There was a traveling exhibit from the National Library of Medicine called the Harry Potter's World exhibit. And so we sort of did a whole smorgasbord of events at the libraries. We had probably the biggest component, which I'd like to do again for some other more themed events, or things like various history months, was having professors come in and do a series of talks in the library, and also some community members as well. So kind of having a mix of viewpoints. We had, of course, the display, sort of big central display in the library. I'm trying to think of what other things we had going on. Some sort of more fun things, like we did a Horcrux scavenger hunt for incoming freshmen, which was really fun. That was also a great way to get them to know the campus as well as just the libraries, and have it be a little less just here's the library, here's our resources, this is what we do with them. And also had a really good time partnering with a lot of community organizations and people in the communities. Like the farmers market had a Hogsmeade Market Day, and that was connected with the whole thing. And the local public library also had a couple of events that were linked in. Sort of what I've been up to recently, and just looking for more opportunities to do that kind of stuff.
That's kind of awesome. I'm kind of super jealous. As a massive Harry Potter nerd myself, I'm super jealous.
It was really fun. We also, well, one thing that I'm hoping we'll be able to talk about some is also ideas for publicity. We did some things that were fun, but I've been surprised at which ones actually worked. But one of the fun things I got to do as a Harry Potter nerd was make Hogwarts acceptance letters for incoming students. And then I guess be the owl in that scenario. But
Yes, we're definitely going to talk about marketing. I think that's pretty much essential when it comes to anything like this. Amy, I think you were about to chime in.
Yeah, I was actually trying to write up a little list of like which themed months or maybe weeks that we really focus on. And it's an odd thing. I realize in the fall, really the only themed thing that we do is Banned Books Week. And one year we did kind of like a big bracket with voting down various banned books to get to like everybody's favorite banned book. And then this last year we didn't do quite as much, and that was my fault. I kind of dropped the ball on that. But really throughout the rest of the fall, we actually don't focus a lot on very themed things. And then moving into the spring, I actually just met with my events planning committee, and so we have Black History Month, which also coincides with we're doing a media week. I actually really haven't done any research about this media week thing that's happening in February. I don't know if it's a national thing or just on campus, basically. So when we did our display for Black History Month, we actually decided to go with kind of a media focus. So it's just a visual kind of display, but we selected films from our Canopy streaming database, and kind of wrote little historical, or not historical, because not everything was. We didn't focus on just kind of past history. We also talked a little bit about Black Lives Matter and some kind of contemporary activists and things like that. But each kind of DVD image had a notation with it, basically. So like I said, we're hoping to tie it to like a bigger campus themed thing of Media Week. And then we also do a blind date with a book this month, too. And I won't go through and list literally everything we're doing this spring, but I did want to point out, Chris, you had mentioned National Library Week, which has been something that we definitely do, but I would say our bigger push in April is actually National Poetry Month, and we do hands-on kind of displays, very interactive for our students. We'll do a reading. So we do kind of a lot more for National Poetry Month than we do for National Library Week.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like what we do. We used to do a lot for National Library Week at Emerson. We have an event every year that is called Emerson Authors, where we throw a party for all the faculty members who read a book. And then we also have we do a book display of those. We have the event, and then we would do these read posters where we would try and get one student from each department to be, the poster child for their department, and it was always an incredibly big hassle to get faculty to nominate students, to arrange time when they could be photographed, stage the picture, Photoshop everything, print them, and then we would hang them in the library. So I didn't do it last year, and nobody complained. So instead we're doing something a little bit lower key. This week, actually, supposedly, if the snow stops and people can actually make it to the library, is I Love the Library Week, we've decided. and that's our own sort of theme thing we've picked. And so we're doing the Read poster thing, but as Instagram posts.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
that's great.
Yeah, much easier, much faster.
Yeah.
And they can do it on their own time. They can like send us like a selfie or have a friend take a picture and just send us a quote. It's way easier.
That party you throw for professors who have books, is that for professors who have a new book out that year, or just sort of for like everybody who's got publications, or how does that work?
That year.
New books that year.
Yeah.
That sounds
And that can be, and we honor whole books, book chapters. I don't think we do individual articles, but we also do films because we have a lot of faculty members who produce film. So.
Yeah. Do you have sorry to keep asking questions, I'm just like,
that's what this is all about. That's why it's a round table.
Yeah. Do you have a particular way of like keeping tabs on who's publishing what when, or do they sort of like self-report?
I think we send an email to the departments.
Okay.
And say, if you've published something, let us know.
Yeah.
And we kind of rely on them to be, but we don't have I don't think we have like a more sophisticated way of tracking that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I think there might be another office on campus that also tracks it. So sometimes we double check with them to see if there's anybody we missed.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
For us at Northwestern, I mean, our big tent pole has traditionally been National Library Week, and we do actually tend to do like a week's worth of stuff. We don't necessarily theme it towards the National Library Week theme because we just kind of want to, our focus is on doing something that will be successful, less than trying to shoehorn activities into the ALA theme, which brings me to another thought which I'll come back to. So for that, we usually have some sort of an author talk that we pair with our university press so that they come in and one of their authors do something. We've sometimes piggybacked that with Poetry Month because our press actually does a lot with publishing around poetry. That's actually one of their bread and butter genres, if you will. And then we usually try and do a lot of like interactive but low impact displays. Like we've done a question wall. We do it with Post-it notes where we ask a question each day and people write their answers on Post-it notes and put it on the wall. We recently got one of those, essentially like a whiteboard wall. So it's painted with what's called idea paint. I don't know if anyone else has seen this. And so you can write right on the wall. And those are actually really, really even more successful because people, I think, just like to graffiti. But the downside to that, though, is that when you change the question each day, you end up erasing all of the responses from the day before. And one of the nice things about the Post-it note wall has always been that you can see people's responses to previous questions, and people can then chime in the next day on what they did the day before. What else have we done for National Library Week? We also do staff posters. I'm going to steal this idea of doing read posters because we've done them differently each year, but usually it's just kind of an introduction to who the librarians are in a more personal way. It's not like, hey, this is what I can help you with, but it's more of like, hey, they're human beings that work in this library and they're friendly and approachable and they're nice and hey, this is what they look like. And we put those all around the building, so we try and get 20 posters if we're lucky. And spread them around the libraries. And then we cap our event off with a game night, which has nothing to do with anything. It was originally, when we first started doing National Library Week, it was our way of actually getting a game night to happen in the library. And then once they found out how successful it was, we've just been like, oh, well, this is our tentpole event. And it took us a couple years, but it actually has become like an event on campus, like a destination thing that actually people look forward to, which has been kind of awesome. And then we do a couple other things throughout the year. We do, Open Access Week, where we have faculty come and speak about open access. We do GIS is really big. Geographic Information Software Systems, depending on how you call it, is really big on our campus. So we do Geography Week, where we do one day we do a geography puzzle challenge on we call the street. So it's right when you walk into the library, and it's basically we have puzzles of every continent, and we time students to see how fast they can put the continent together. And it's insanely popular, and students get super competitive and also want to do all of them. So it's a nice way to kind of just get people to come in, do something entertaining, and we talk to them about what kind of like, because they ask us like, why are you doing this? We can talk a little bit about what GIS is and the map services that we have on campus. And we also do Preservation Week, which I'm not too heavily involved in, but our preservation department does some programming. Usually they've done faculty talks, or not faculty talks, but staff talks about preservation issues and things like that. And they used to do an event on the street as well where they would show how to do like bookbinding and stuff like that.
When is Preservation Week?
I'm sorry?
When is Preservation Week?
Preservation Week is... and this is going to be one of the things I wanted to talk about too. It's the week after National Library Week. And so one of the things I'm curious about with themed events is how do you handle events that butt up against other events? So like this month, as Amy, you were saying, so this is African American History Month, Black History Month, and then there was also the other event that you wanted to do, which fell out of my head. Blind Date for a Book, yes. So you've got that, and then you've got, you know, Valentine's Day, Poetry Month, and National Library Week, and then on our campus also Preservation Week. For us, GIS Week falls right after we do our annual orientation. So how do you handle multiple events, promotion burnout, that sort of thing? Like, how do you handle these things that kind of overlap or butt up against each other? Poetry Month, also April.
Okay, that's a difficult question. So, at least with the two things that we have going on, kind of three in February, Black History Month, Blind Date with a Book, and then this Media Week thing. Honestly, I try to find ways to tie them all together when possible, or at least tie multiple things together. So that's why we did the focus on the on digital media for Black History Month, because at least then that kind of gets two of my three kind of events out of the way. And I have to be honest. There are a lot of things that I don't really do campus promotion about, and therefore don't really need to worry about that too much, mostly because a lot of these displays and things like that I'm talking about are just things that, like, as students are in the library, they can just kind of stop by. It's not so much we need to have people kind of coming in. So I guess that's my really kind of terrible answer for that. Like, I'm trying to think, because last year we did a film screening series for Black History Month. It was a grant-funded series, but we would have also had Blind Date with a Book up. But that's where, like, so I did promotion for the film screening series, because obviously we want people to come to see these films that we were screening. But I don't really feel like I need to, like, promote Blind Date with a Book. So, yeah.
Yeah. We sort of, it was all sort of within the one big the umbrella of the Harry Potter series, but we did have a lot of events coming sort of fast on each other within the same week as part of that series. I don't know that I have a good answer for this, just mostly trying to plan ahead and make sure that we were getting, like, the flyers and the announcements out at least a couple of days before each one, even though that kind of led to, like, some Venn diagram overlaps of publicity. I'm not sure how well it worked. I think a lot of it was just trying to get into people's hands a big calendar of the events, so they would have like everything at once and make sure they had that, and then they'd be able to choose what was really calling to them. And having apparently, well, word of mouth, but also having flyers up in their dorms also seemed to help a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the problem of having things one on top of another is one of the reasons why we decided to stop doing National Library Week in April. Our semester actually ends the last week of April, so like by May 1st, everyone but the seniors is gone. So that week is always like, it's usually our finals period or stress about the end of, it's just the worst possible timing for us. Likewise, Banned Books Week is really hard. We only do Banned Books Week if there's an organization on campus that is also doing something, and then we partner with them, and we wait for them to approach us to make that happen. But, you know, we've find themed opportunities that are at better times in the semester, which is why, you know, we do Blind Date with a Book too, and we're doing it this month to tie in with the I Love the Library Week. And so that works really well for us. We've tried to do National Novel Writing Month, because that's like a good time for us, I think, but we just haven't been very successful in drumming up business for it. So, does anyone else do NaNoWriMo? No.
No.
No, that I'd love to.
We have a lot of people who are interested in publishing and writing, and so I thought, oh, that'd be a total shoo-in for our people, but apparently not.
I did think of one part of the semester, this past semester, where I was doing multiple things at the same time. So I was like, oh, I can kind of give a better answer for this, because you're right, Kate. Like, I feel like a lot of what I do is try to not do too many overlapping things. So at the end of this isn't quite themed, although maybe for most of us finals week is a themed thing in a way, because that's something we all are probably focusing on. So leading up to finals week, we do a study room raffle where we reward students with raffle tickets for every in-person service desk interaction they have, and then we give away one study room to 4 people. So one person gets it on Sunday, one person gets it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of finals week, basically. So I'm usually I am often very heavily promoting that, and then around the same time, at least in the fall, this doesn't happen in the spring at all, although maybe National Poetry Month would overlap a little bit. I'm also we do this, we're a Catholic Jesuit university, so we've done for years now an Advent calendar that's kind of giant, and the students each decorate kind of a shadow box. So we have an event where the students come and they decorate a shadow box that will end up as part of this Advent calendar. In the future, we are actually going to change it from an Advent calendar to just a countdown to the end of the semester. That was a decision I made at the end of the semester. So actually, I will say that I was a bit of a failure with promoting the Advent calendar event while also promoting the finals week stuff. We had enough turnout that we got everything made, but I will say that I think, Chris, you mentioned kind of that promotional burnout thing that happens where students see too much. I do try my hardest to advertise in slightly different places depending on the audience, but sometimes you end up needing to hit the same audience, and so that doesn't really work very well. So that was kind of the one thing that I could think of that really overlapped and didn't work so well.
Let's talk about audiences. Do you plan different events with different audiences in mind, and do you market to these different audiences differently?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we do. like National Poetry Month is we actually we promote it outside of campus, so there's a bigger push to kind of do external marketing. And I would say we actually push it most heavily to the English department in particular. Yes, some promotional things will go out kind of across campus, but really we try to focus on the English department mostly because we know that there's a good chance that they'll require their students to come to the event.
That's always a win.
Yeah.
And then for Banned Books Week, this past year we did a read aloud of a banned book, and so we actually promoted it mostly to our communication and theater arts department, really talking about kind of the different majors within that department that might enjoy reading out loud, things like that, and those classes that are really focusing on topics of censorship and things like that. So.
Anybody else?
I think we don't have a large enough student body. I mean, maybe there's a few things that I might market more towards graduate students, but not usually. It usually is just everybody and everybody. When we do the event for faculty authors, that we promote mostly to faculty rather than students, because most students aren't really interested in that anyway, unless there's like a faculty member that they really like and they want to come hear them speak or something. So yeah, it's usually a faculty-student divide, not necessarily like different groups of students.
Kate, can I actually ask you, so I know you said you don't do it very often, but what are you marketing to grad students in particular? That's actually, I would say that's an audience that I rarely reach out to, honestly.
Oh, sure. We have marketed to graduate students, I guess probably not so much the themed events, but when we used to do occasional drop-in workshops, they were our primary target for that. And I think we also do a lot of the, sometimes we work with the Office of Off-Campus Student Services to do coffee break or pizza in the library during finals as part of our finals fun thing. Like anything that's like around those major things like midterms or finals, we're marketing at graduate students in particular. And by marketing at them, I mean I contact the Office of Graduate Services and the off-campus students, and I send them just an announcement. We also have a we're trying to promote our LibGuides pretty heavily this last year, and we made like a little postcard that was like studying off campus. Here are all the things. We made an off-campus student LibGuide, basically, and so that was like a heavy push to the graduate students.
I was actually, you answered one question I was about to ask, which was sort of what special tools or techniques you use to market to grad students. But you also mentioned, I think this has been mentioned a couple of times, reaching out to faculty, and I also have that similar. It's mostly just students or faculty divide. Is there anything particular that you use to reach out to faculty? And that's kind of an open question, actually.
Sure. We do 2 or 3 things for faculty. We can email all the faculty, and we have a couple administrative, like the library does not have the power to like send to the all faculty list, but we have a couple of friends who will do it for us. Depending on which group of faculty we want, we ask different friends. And we also have the faculty library committee, which has a representative from most departments, except for like the really small ones. And so when we meet with them, if there's something we want them to do, or tell their departments about, because we meet with them and then the next week they meet with their departments. And so we're like, tell everybody about this thing. And there's also a monthly faculty assembly that we attend as librarians. So we get an announcement there.
Eva, I actually wanted to chime in about that a little bit because it was a question I was going to ask you, but I also kind of have a solution for, if that makes any sense. I was going to say, have you tried any Facebook marketing at all, paid advertisements?
Not paid advertisements, no. We have a Facebook page. It's not. I've been trying to make it a bit more active along with our blog, and been trying to bring in an Instagram, but none of them I'd say are getting terribly high use yet.
Okay, so this is a little bit still a working theory for me, but I will say, like, yes, students like our Facebook page, but I would actually say that our faculty are using Facebook a little bit more than our students. If you think about that, like, kind of stereotypical age range of who's actually on Facebook a lot anymore. I know it's supposedly true that millennials are moving away and, you know, using Twitter, Instagram, blah, 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 all these other things. So in theory, especially if you're trying to reach kind of an older age group, Facebook marketings actually might work fairly well, and that ties into kind of the other thing that I was going to mention, which is trying to market to your community versus the outside community versus kind of your campus community. I've had really good success with creating Facebook ads, and when you create one, you can actually do things like choose an age range of who you're pushing your marketing to. You can choose things like, John Carroll is in University Heights. It's a very tiny suburb outside of Cleveland, so you can choose like University Heights plus maybe a couple surrounding suburbs if you don't necessarily feel like you need a huge reach. You can also tag interests that, okay, so for example, if I'm marketing a poetry event, some of the obvious tags might be poetry or reading, but it also might be something like bookstores or specific authors that are similar to your author that is going to talk. And kind of the last piece I want to say about Facebook marketing is it's so cheap. Like, you can do like a $5 to $10 ad, have it run for 2 weeks, let's say, and it'll reach like thousands of people potentially.
Wow.
That's my little. I will say as a caveat to that, like, I'm not 100% sure how great the return is. Although, Chris, I think you've started using some Facebook marketing and had at least pretty decent result, like beyond the reach, because the reach isn't like you can see the numbers of who it's reaching, but kind of getting people to actually interact with things are maybe a little bit different.
Yeah, we did this fall. We started testing with Facebook, boosting posts on Facebook, and I will concur that setting it up is actually pretty easy. Targeting it to an audience is pretty easy. And reaching people is a plus. I'm not completely sold on how. So I'd say there's two things to take away. One is, or what you think you might get out of it. One is, for us, there was a plus in actually reaching those people and having them discover our Facebook page and interact with us. So the engagement part, the social media engagement part, that was a win. The translating that marketing to people actually showing up, I was not sold so much on that actually translating into bodies at the event. In fact, I could say that of the 2 events that we did, the first one, it definitely didn't translate to bodies coming into our event. The second one, it's up in the air whether or not it did. But I will say that event, it was a campaign that we did for our archives and digital services units around getting donations for, it was called Undead Tech. And it was around getting people to donate old technology so that we could utilize the technology that was getting donated to our archives department, specifically Karen Black's cell phones. And so we created this whole campaign around it. Well, by boosting that post, it actually got picked up by local and national news outlets, which then expanded our reach for the campaign to NPR, the Tribune, several news outlets. So there's a lot of scary benefits to, you never know who is actually gonna see it. And I think what we kind of realized is in the digital age of newspapers, there are a lot of people that are looking for people to talk or stories to push, and that's, if you've got a good story that people might be interested in asking you or talking to you about, you never know who's going to pick it up, and that can have huge dividends.
Yeah.
I would say to the point about reaching out to faculty, so we also do, most of our outreach events are targeted towards just general undergrads, but we do some stuff like Open Access Week, Fair Use Week, which we're going to start working on next year because of when Open Access Week falls. Again, it's early in the fall, and it's like right after. Oh, did I mention that we also do Press Week now? Yeah. So there's lots of themed events. But those kind of like, our target is faculty and grad students. And we really rely on our subject liaisons to push that information out to faculty and grad students, because we don't have a listserv that we can just do an all faculty push to. So we have to really rely on our staff to work and send that information out to their departments. For undergrads, it's a little easier because we have relationships with, like Residence Life and different programs on campus that work with undergrads and say, hey, can you put this in your weekly newsletter? Here's a blurb. Another specific audience that we actually started marketing towards specifically and programming for is international students. We've been finding ways that we can work with international students, since especially like they're here during intersession when everybody else has gone away, and what do they have to do on campus because everything's closed. So coming up with programming that would be interesting to them, and then finding ways to push that out, which we've been using the international office as our primary mode of communication. So let's keep pushing on the marketing theme. So how are you marketing your events?
Every way possible. I say that jokingly, mostly because it really does feel like that sometimes. Print media, print publications, what am I trying to say? Flyers, things like that actually seem to work the best on my campus. On the other hand, every time I made a mistake, actually Black History Month last year, where I did the kind of print push and didn't know that I could do kind of digital advertising in the student union. And right away at the first event, one student that I was talking to, I was like, how did you find out about this? And it was kind of like a word of mouth thing, which is always the best, of course. But he was like, oh, didn't you put up a digital image in the student union? I was like, no. And he was like, all of us students look at that all the time. I was like, okay. So, and then I just found out more recently from my student advisory board that apparently a daily newsletter that I was originally told students ignore, actually students love it. So I've also been pushing in this daily newsletter for various events.
Yeah.
Amy, can I ask you a follow-up on where do you post your flyers? I know every campus is different, but that's one of the things I'm always curious about.
We are free to do whatever we want in the library. So I kind of will actually kind of plaster, in places. My office has a big wall of windows, and I'm currently facing that are kind of in an area where students are pretty active, so I use my window space quite a lot. But outside of the library, there are 63 places on campus that have approved. You can get a flyer approved by this office to hang things, and they have 7 of those 63 are kind of bigger spaces, so I usually do 7 larger poster-sized images, and then the rest of the places are kind of like in the residence halls. I know I shouldn't say dorms. I usually do a smaller print flyer for the 56 other places on campus.
Wow.
I'd have to just say ditto on the everywhere possible, more or less. I actually I'm in the middle of running a survey about the event series that we did, and one of the big questions is just how did you hear about it? And sort of tied for first right now, we've got word of mouth, saw flyers or posters, which, you know, right, we mostly like, there's 2 libraries on campus, so they're in the 2 libraries and then in the student center, and then a couple of different businesses, sort of on Main Street. We're also in a very small town. And then also tied with those 2 was we have this thing called Alfred Today, which is sort of a summary news email that gets sent out to all the students and faculty and everybody every morning, which I didn't realize most people were looking at. But yeah, that seems to be way up there, and then everything else is sort of like, there's the Hogwarts acceptance letters I mentioned, and then after that it's like blog, Facebook, I was a participant. But yeah, the flyers, again, I would second, seem to be much higher than I thought they would be. Kind of that print format.
In our, you mentioned your daily newsletter. Ours, we have the ability to send to everyone on campus, or just faculty, and then just students. So that's like the one. I just wanted to comment and say that really quick.
Yeah.
I've recently found out how to get posters posted in the residence halls, because before I didn't. The only time I could ever get it done was if I had a student who was willing to go and put them up. But apparently, if you just drop off a pile of them at the Office of Residence Life, they give them to the RA. So, amazing. Other than that, I have a list of all the bulletin boards on campus, and I or a minion will go and poster for about an hour just to get, because we're in an urban campus, so we have about 4 buildings that have bulletin boards, and so you just start at the top and work your way down. And some of them are more regulated than others. Some of them are more crowded than others. Like, there's one department in particular that always has, like, the bulletin board is strictly divided into, like, our events and other people's events. And so you have to make space in the other people's events for your things. And in my building, there is someone who diligently takes down the posters after they've expired. You have to get a stamp from the Office of Student Life, and they're always, it's always current information, always very up to date, and so I have no problem hanging my posters in my own building. But in one of the other major buildings, they don't really do that as much, and so I find myself being like, well, this happened a month ago, so I'm going to take it down and put my poster there instead. But we do that. We do social media. We have a weekly email about events. There's also a calendar that they swear is going to become the place where all the events are advertised. So I always, and it takes me like no time, so I just add it there. We also have the option to advertise with little postcards in the napkin holders in the dining halls. That's a thing that we've recently done for a couple of events, and for one, it was completely ineffective. Clearly, completely ineffective. But for another, it was, pretty good. Like, people were like, "Oh yeah, I saw it in the dining hall." So, guess it depends.
That's the struggle. Is when it works one time, it doesn't work the other time. Is it worth doing the third time? Yeah. We're kind of in the same boat. We actually, although we do flyer our building, we've stopped doing paper flyers in other locations. For one, it's staff time to create the item, and then 2, to distribute it, and 3, we struggle with seeing the return on investment. And when I go and look at the wall of flyers and go, how would anybody see our thing amidst this? So we just kind of stopped doing that. So we do digital signs in all of the res halls. They all have plasma screens that we can put a slide on, as does the student union. And we also have, so we're located pretty centrally on campus, and we have a plaza that everybody has to walk across to get to the student union that has several large windows, and we put like massive, like 10-foot poster in there. And that's kind of, I think, our big push for depending on the event. If it's a big like tentpole event, we do that. Otherwise, we'll put a large poster up, just like one for the event. And then social media. My question about social media is, I think this is one that people have had several times, is do you create a post or do you create an event for pushing your activity?
We do both. I create a Facebook event, and then I give the short link for that out to my other social media managers, and they can either link directly to that event or to a copy of the poster or to another image. And so we do Facebook. For Facebook, we create the event. Twitter, we use more for the, like, this is happening right now. Like the day of or the hour that something starts is usually when we'll send out tweets. I have not yet decided where Instagram fits in this because we just created that account in like last month.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for that. I usually do events, but I can't decide whether it looks worse to have an event that nobody RSVPs to, or because I like the idea of creating the event because you kind of see all the information that you need in a way that's maybe familiar to people. I have actually been moving away from that finally, though, and trying out things like I use Piktochart a lot for my signage, and Piktochart, actually maybe Canva has this option too. I'm doing the weird thing of kind of going between Piktochart and Canva, so some things I know better in one than the other. Piktochart, I usually kind of create my flyer and then make it live, so it's got like a live link to it, and then I kind of use that shortened link in other places. So it's always kind of coming back to that flyer that has the date, time, all that kind of info on it. And that's actually worked pretty well. I did that with our Read Aloud. And I didn't create an event, I don't think. No, maybe I did both. I might have done both.
I find with so many of these digital things, it's like it's so easy to do like a Facebook event. It's so easy to make an entry in the online calendar, even if nobody looks at it. Like, I don't mind doing that.
Yeah. I was also sort of nervous about like having an event with no one RSVP'd to it. So what we've mostly been doing is so we've got our blog, and then we use If This Then That. I don't know if any of you guys, IFTTT, to automatically share it on the Facebook, and that kind of becomes like the blog is where the central hub. That's where we keep sort of the big bulk of information and all the details and everything. And there are these kind of satellite posts that go out to try and pull more people in. But I haven't done any events on Facebook now.
I was actually going to ask, this is kind of about marketing, but it's not specifically about social media, so I'm technically derailing us in these last couple minutes. I recently was invited to be a part of a larger campus group. It's actually mostly student affairs focused, and then I'm kind of one of the few faculty members, as a librarian, one of the few faculty members that are included. But that has been really huge. That, like, having that relationship with these other people on campus, and we're just called the Programming Working Group. So all of our focus is about creating events and things like that, and kind of communicating our events with each other. And there was always a campus-wide events thing that somehow the library was never included on. So being a part of this group, I'm suddenly now getting my events and things added to this calendar, which is awesome. So I just wanted to say, like, that's my little, like, try to see what, like, who you can join up with across your campus to help with that, like, cross-promotional kind of thing that happens.
Always a good plan.
Yeah.
As we are running onto our last 4 minutes, is there anything that anybody wanted us to talk about that we didn't tackle, or anything that you're doing that you really feel like people should know about and steal from you?
Just one quick thing that's not necessarily for programming, but it is outreach. We have this personal librarians program that we instituted, I think, 2 years ago now, and one part of it that's been particularly successful. We're still figuring out if the program is a success, but the publicity we've been working on. We have these trading cards, librarian trading cards. And actually, when you guys were talking about the personalized read posters on Instagram, I was thinking of them. They're sort of vaguely Magic the Gathering-esque, but they have, these sort of cartoon versions of each of the librarians participating in the program, and then our actual contact information on the back. And they've been pretty popular. And so I think that kind of personal touch helps, and if anyone has a program similar, I'd be happy also to answer any questions later about how we actually made the cards.
I'll second the library trading cards. We've been doing that, and it's been a huge success with students and faculty and other campus partners.
That sounds like a great idea.
I think the faculty actually seem to especially like it.
Yeah. We will hopefully be, I don't know if they'll look, I think ours won't look like trading cards as much, which I'm a little bit disappointed about. That got kind of shot down a little bit. But they will be
baby steps.
I know, they will be much more casual than the kind of traditional, card. So it's kind of a little bit of an in-between thing, but I want to do that so bad.
As long as the face is on it, that's
Right.
that's the most important part, I would say. Is as long as their face is on the card, then you're at least getting across what is most important. So one last question. As we think about these events that are annual, do you do different things different years, or and reinvent the wheel each time, or do you switch it up?
A little bit of both. I always do a reading for National Poetry Month, but we might change some of the displays that we do. Blind date with a book, we'll probably just keep doing that. I might, again, change kind of like the themed way that it looks, but definitely keep the same thing. I am trying to, at worst, maybe have like kind of two ways of doing things and then alternate depending on the year, so I'm not always doing exactly the same thing, but I'm trying to not reinvent the wheel every single time necessarily.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I have yet to have any events that are regular enough to have a new or even have a template for them. So, not yet.
Yeah, I like having things that I can start to run on autopilot, particularly because it means that I don't personally have to run them.
Mm-hmm.
I can hand them off to other people who helped me the last time, or at least even if I'm still running them, I often forget things from year to year if I try to change that stuff too much. So it's nice to be able to be improvement over time.
Yeah, and we do a bit of the same, a little mix of both. I mean, one of our goals is to make it easier the next time around, but also to not be too oh, I did that last year, I don't need to do it this year.
Mm-hmm.
So we switched some things up. For National Library Week, we'd been doing the question wall for several years in a row, and then participation started to dip, and so we're kind of well, maybe we don't do that this year. And then we started to think about events on a 4-year calendar a little more often, where we say, hey, let's get ourselves 4 years of material, and then maybe we cycle them in every 4 years, because the students that did it that 1 year, they'll be gone in 4 years. that hasn't translated quite yet. We're still working on that for our themed events, or at least it's an idea that I'm trying to push for our themed events. But it is how we've focused on our annual orientation event, which, spoiler alert, that's going to be one of our upcoming conversations for roundtables, which is going to be orientation, summer and fall orientation for new students. And with that, unless anybody has anything else that they want to chime in on, I'm going to say thanks for joining us. I thought this was a really great conversation. I'm glad you all came out. I will be sending out a follow-up feedback form in the email, so take a look at that just so we can get an idea of how things went and how we need to make changes for the next time around. Our next conversation is going to be in, I think, April. And off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is. Hang on a second. I think I might have it written down. No, I don't. So.
I can't remember either, sorry.
Yeah. But I do know that orientation is coming up, and I think it actually might be the next one. Because we're trying to do things that people will be interested in talking about and being able to do something with them right after we talk. So thanks, everybody, and I will talk to you and see you around in the future.
Thank you. Thanks for some great ideas. Bye.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.